On this episode of Ask Dan Windows, we're going to talk about sets and will it ever come to the desktop OS, what I think about 3:2 aspect ratios and will we see more of them this year, and what do I want to see from the Xbox team that they're not doing right now, all that and more. Stay tuned. Will 16:10 or 3:2 aspect ratios appear in more laptops this year? All right, this is a great question as 3:2 aspect ratios are near and dear to my heart. If you don't know, this is what Microsoft uses in all their Surface devices, and a lot of people really enjoy having the taller screen. Now, I'm not saying they should get rid of 16:9. In fact, that's going to stick around for a very long time. And let's be honest, you have 99% of laptops have 16:9 right now. That's not changing soon. But will we see 16:10 or 3:2 more this year? The answer is yes. Some companies like Asus have a new laptop coming out for productivity and creativity use that will have a 16:10 ratio. And I do expect to see a few more companies that are not Microsoft to announce devices as well. Having said that, we're still not going to get a ton of these devices. There'll just be more than there were in 2018, and that's progress. The reason for this is the simple fact is 16:9 displays are cheaper than 3:2. Don't forget, these companies do not make their own displays. Lenovo sources out their displays to either Sharp or LG or Samsung or another maker. And those companies make a ton of 16:9, which makes those displays cheaper. And when you're trying to undercut your competition, you look to cut corners where you can to save money. 16:9 is simply cheaper, where 3:2 is going to raise the price and it's a bigger bet. But yeah, we'll see more this year, and I can't wait to see what's coming next. Will Microsoft sets ever come to Windows 10 desktops? All right, if you didn't follow the news, we have a whole other video me talking about this, but yeah, Microsoft apparently has shelved sets for the foreseeable future. Now, part of that is because they're switching the browser out right now from Edge HTML to a Chromium-based system. If you understood how sets work, which is a tabbed experience in Windows, so each app will have its own tabs in there, and when you open a new tab, it defaults to Edge, running the World Wide Web. Well, if you look at that and you're going to swap out the browser midstream, that's going to cause some problems. Now, Microsoft could just switch it out to Chromium and it'll be a lot of work, but evidently a lot of people didn't care for sets, or at least how it was implemented when it was tried out in 2018 for insiders. Will we see it come to desktop? I don't think so, at least not anytime soon. I think if they're going to try it, they'll go for Windows Light OS in the future, which is a better experience for this sort of system, where it's going to be more like a Chrome OS experience. Of course, we've also heard that it's not a priority for that OS either right now, so we'll have to wait and see. For now, though, there is a third-party app out there that gets the job done for a lot of people, so that's going to be your best bet for now. Any new Qualcomm ARM-based PCs on the near horizon? All right, so another favorite topic of mine is Windows 10 and ARM, and it's been a little quiet. Back in December, Qualcomm did announce the 8CX, its next generation chip built specifically for Windows 10. It's supposed to be significantly more powerful. Now, it's not replacing the current ARM processor built for Windows 10, the Snapdragon 850. Instead, this is going to be another level of chip. Now, back then in December, they said this will be out in July or August. So it doesn't make a lot of sense, say, at Mobile World Congress in February to announce devices that may not come out for another 4 to 6 months. But what is coming up next? Computex 2019 in Taipei. And yes, I'm going to take a 16-hour flight to be there to cover it. And I am expecting to see some more Windows 10 and ARM devices announced there. After all, that event runs right into June, and that seems an ideal event because it's going to be 6 weeks later. You'll be able to launch 8CX devices. Of course, who's going to launch those devices and what they're going to look like? Well, I actually don't know. And that's always going to be the exciting part here, but pay attention to Computex. We'll be there to cover it. How happy are you that changes Microsoft engineers have submitted to Chromium are being accepted and implemented by Google for all Chromium-based browsers? All right, in a recent conversation I had with Microsoft, they told me they've had over 150 commits to the Chromium project that have been accepted. Things like smooth scrolling or ARM support, which is really interesting. And to be clear, this is accepted to the Chromium project. That means all browsers based off of it could now implement those features. So even if you don't like Edge, I'm talking the new Chromium Edge for whatever reason, you could still use Google Chrome and get ARM support should Google choose to implement it. Same thing with smooth scrolling. Overall, this is really good news. After all, if you don't like Edge, you can still use Chrome or the Brave browser and still get a lot of these benefits. So if you start to see your browsers getting better over time and you don't want to switch to Edge, you have Microsoft to thank for that. Now, this raises all sorts of questions too. After all, the Chromium-based system doesn't have to accept these commits from Microsoft. They are simply recommendations and things that they want to do. And don't forget, the Chromium project, while open source, is still run by Google, which means they don't have to accept these things. Now, so far, both these companies are playing really well together. Microsoft is encouraged, but that could change down the road, and that could cause certain problems. Now, I don't expect that to happen, but if things got really bad, Microsoft could actually fork off this browser and make their own, but that would cause all sorts of problems and would kind of defeat the purpose of using the Chromium project. But that is how the Chromium project started after all, so who knows what will happen. But so far, this is all really good news. Like I said, if you use other browsers besides Edge, you'll be surprised to see that these things may get better in the near future, and that's going to be thanks to Microsoft. What do you want to see most from the Xbox division in the future? Now, this question is kind of funny. It's asked by our senior games editor, Jez Corden. You should follow him on Twitter as he is the master of Xbox right now. But what would I like to see? So Zach Bowden, our senior Windows editor, and I talk a lot about this on our podcast. And while we're big into games and more on a casual level, what we'd really like to see is a little bit of a turn back to multimedia support. So if you go back a few years when the Xbox One was announced, it focused heavily on the living room. We had Kinect and we had the One Guide. It was all supposed to be built around this idea. The Xbox was going to be a centralized hub in your living room that was run under Don Maddock. And while we all understand what happened there, Xbox One sales plummeted, PlayStation did much better, and well, the rest is history. Having said that, Microsoft has since swung the other direction and are now super pro gamers. And it's actually working very well for them. I think they're a little bit overcompensating here. While they've done very well for gaming and have swung the pendulum the other way, or winning back support from the hardcore gaming community, I feel like they could do two things at once here. For instance, I really just want a new multimedia remote, or why not just add a microphone to the Xbox so I can use voice control like every other system out there. I brought this up in the past that Roku has a microphone in their little remote control. If Roku can do this, surely Microsoft can. After all, they have a thing called Cortana. It's built around this. So I don't really understand why they can't make Xbox a little bit more multimedia friendly to really compete with the Apple TV. Now, if you go look at the new Xbox One S All Digital Edition, this is a perfect example. While it's a really good idea, I think the price point and implementation of it is just poor. After all, it looks like the current Xbox One S. While I get it, that saves them money. They could have made this a really small box, price it at $199 or even cheaper if they could afford it, and really compete with the Apple TV. After all, it can do 4K video, which is going to be what a lot of people are looking for. And I think they're missing the opportunity here. So I'd like to see Microsoft and the Xbox team bring it a little bit back for the multimedia stuff and compete with Roku and Apple TV where they can. They seem to have all the parts in place. I think they swung too far for all the gaming stuff. I'd like to see them continue with it, but come on, guys, give me another remote at least. All right, so that does it for this episode. Remember, if you have a question, use hashtag AskDanWindows on Twitter or drop me an email at askdan@windowscentral.com. I'll try to answer your questions there. Leave me a comment below and tell me what you think about the questions in this episode and whether or not you agree with me or not. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching. Take care, everyone.